A summer of decisions leading to weeks of debate.
These are our children.
Each school district setting their own guidelines when it comes to masks.
It's not about you, it's about everybody in the community.
Now the question, how long will kids have to wear them?
Thanks for joining us from our Fox 46 studios in West Charlotte. I'm Brian Blakely.
And I'm Paige Failing. Fox 46 goes back to school. We are getting you ready. Parents, kids, everyone heading back to class, getting ready right now.
And one of the biggest things parents need to know is if masks are required in your child's classroom. Right now, at least 10 districts say masks are optional, but Charlotte-Mecklenburg schools in Anson County are just two of the few counties saying once your kid steps foot on campus, they have to be wearing a mask. Fox 46's Will Lewis spoke to the experts about the science behind the mask and found out the best protection really comes down to 3 words.
Please try to keep your 6 feet.
We've warned them, taken them off, and now some are saying students should put masks back on for the 2021-22 school year.
I do hope that many school districts and kids will decide to go with masks strongly encouraged, if not required. I think that especially with the new variants that are so infectious compared to what we were dealing with even a year ago.
I'm here to stand up for choice because I believe that all parents have the choice for their child based on their child's history, their family history, their religion, whatever it might be, right? I think parents should have the choice.
That's the move in South Carolina, letting parents and not school districts decide. The law was passed in the recent state budget. If you choose to send your child to school with a mask, you need to make sure it meets the standards for fit, feel, and function.
Even when somebody's infected, if the other person's wearing a mask, it's pretty good protection. It's not as good as both people wearing a mask, and it's not as good probably as both people being vaccinated.
When looking at fit, the mask needs to cover your nose and mouth. They can have adjustable ear loops and a metal clip for the mask to provide more protection and help glasses from fogging up. You also want a mask that feels comfortable for students because they will be wearing it most of the day. There are plenty of other materials, styles, and levels of strength. That's where function comes in. Function is how well the mask filters particles. Doctors have 3 test methods, but it was determined 2 tests, like the smell test with a mask on, and if you can blow out a candle with the mask on, were not effective in determining if it was a good mask or not so good mask. The true test, according to Dr. Siegel, is the bright light test. It says take your mask and hold it up to a bright light. If you see the threads in the mask, you most likely need a new mask.
If you can, it's probably not as good of a filter as if you can't see that clearly.
The doctors say the best mask is the one you can tie. It gives you a tighter seal. If you're not tying a mask, use a mask with adjustable ear loops. Handkerchiefs, bandanas, and neck gaiters could be the worst. Doctors say a neck gaiter may increase your chances of contracting COVID.
In fact, in at least one study, those were shown to maybe even increase the particles getting through because they break up big particles into small particles, which is not a good thing.
So they may be optional, but if your student is wearing a mask, remember the bright light test. Make sure it fits properly, and medical professionals say be sure your student wears it.
A mask on your face is much better than a mask in your backpack or your pocket.
Will Lewis, Fox 46.
In South Carolina, Governor Henry McMaster says he is against letting city and town leaders decide on masks. Instead, he says the people themselves can decide.
Masking children who have no choice, for the government to mask children who have no choice to protect adults who do have a choice is the wrong thing to do, and we're not going to do it. If you are going to get a vaccination, now is a great time to do it.
South Carolina law forbids mask requirements, but several school districts are still offering a virtual choice for parents if you meet certain requirements. Meanwhile, other districts like Rock Hill and York are offering recommendations on mask requirements.
Right now, kids 12 and up are able to get the vaccine, and up until last week, they were able to do so without their parents' permission. The state Senate passed a bill requiring parental or guardian consent to get their shots. The bill makes it so minors would have to get permission for the vaccine currently under emergency approval. This does not apply to vaccines with full FDA approval.
And if anyone has had to adjust to changes this year, it's been our students going through all of the revolving door of changes to the classrooms. Fox 46's Ann Wyatt Little spoke to a child psychologist about the toll this can take on a child's mental health.
There's no question.
It's been tough.
The pandemic pushed kids to feel a range of emotions.
It's lead to more anxiety and more depression and stuff because, people are being cut off from some of the things that kind of fuel them.
Dr. Michael Clark specializes in child psychiatry with Novant Help. The new year, he says, brings new opportunities to talk with your kids about expectations.
What to anticipate, what's going to make this year different from other years.
While many kids look forward to school, going back can be stressful for others. In the coming weeks, Dr. Clark says you may notice behavioral changes.
Kids, younger age range, can show up more as, the cleanliness or more irritable or more needing more reassurance over and over again, not sleeping as well. In the older kids, they can kind of articulate their feelings better,
Communication is key. If you need help, start by turning to your child's school counselor or principal.
It's proven that help is effective, once they're engaged, but it's, getting that engagement is often the hurdle.
Dr. Clark says set a routine for your kids and try to stick to it. The best prescription for a successful school year?
Being able to remind yourself that what's happening now is not a forever moment.
In Charlotte, Ann Wyatt Little, Fox 46.
Because of the constant school changes and requirements, teachers believe that summer learning loss will be at a record high this year.
Fox 46's Casey Jones spoke with experts to make sure you have your eye on what to look out for to make sure your kids are not falling behind.
Virtual classes, COVID setbacks, and effects on mental health are all contributing to the problem. Students were forced to deal with the roller coaster of 2020 while trying to keep up with schoolwork. Last year, some students were completely virtual, making it hard to learn and focus. For many students, learning loss continued even when they returned to the classroom. Experts say learning loss was worst in math and reading, with significant racial and economic barriers. Lower income students are likely to fall behind further than wealthy students because of access to resources. For most students, classes start in just a few weeks, but experts say it's not too late to help your child get back on track.
Throughout the summer, I'm hoping, most parents continue to make the children read. I always encourage, though, don't necessarily start and just say, I'm going to go pick a second grade reader because they're going into second grade. Many kids can't do that, especially right now. So you need to kind of give the kids a choice as to what they want to read.
She also recommends reading to your child every night. Another expert recommendation is to establish a close relationship with your child's teacher. That way, you'll know how you can help your child out at home. Casey Jones, Fox 46.
In South Carolina, one of the biggest concerns, finding teachers to teach all the kids heading back to class. As Fox 46's Shakira Speaks explains, administrators there are now scrambling to fill hundreds of vacancies.
56 divided by 8 is what, Jennifer? 7 is what?
South Carolina has been buckling under a teaching shortage for almost a decade at this point.
And to this day, finding teachers is still a struggle for South Carolina. Last month, there were still nearly 2,000 vacancies. Patrick Kelly with the Palmetto Teachers Association says the pandemic only made it worse.
We saw a little bit of a slowdown in teachers leaving last year. Now, we couldn't find anybody to replace those who left.
Over the last 5 years, South Carolina's classrooms have averaged over 6,600 teachers leaving per year. Kelly says that's about 10% of the teacher workforce turning over every year.
Last year, our school started with 700 vacant positions. That was a 26% increase over the prior year.
700 vacancies means 700 classrooms where groups of students are without a certified teacher.
Now, with only a handful of days until school starts, we're still not fully staffed.
In Chester, Chesterfield, Lancaster, and all 4 York districts, there are 155 holes in the classroom.
Last year, we had some positions that were open all year.
Lancaster County School District Superintendent Dr. Jonathan Phipps says this forced the district to collapse and expand classes in some schools. This school year, the district started recruiting teachers early in the year to get ahead of the curve.
This year, for the first time in a long time, we have hired some folks that are international teachers.
In a matter of a few weeks, Lancaster County has chipped away at hiring, filling most of the 57 vacancies in that county alone. But one county over, York District 3 Fort Mill is still trying to fill 16 spots.
While we have been touched like everybody in the district and state has been with a teacher shortage over the past few years, right now we're doing fairly well with getting our staff ready to get into school.
Shakira Speaks, Fox 46.
Well, as any parent knows, getting the kids back to school can be a chore in the mornings. You got those early alarm clocks, then you got to rush to get to the bus on time.
Yeah, as parents, we know it all too well. Fox 46's Hawker Vanguard talked to CMS about the challenges they face when it comes to buses and getting kids from point A to point B.
We're getting ready. We're right in the midst of preparing all of our routes for the upcoming school year.
Excited to welcome students back, buses are getting ready, and so are their drivers, who now have another item on their safety checklist: masks. Adam Johnson, Executive Director of Transportation with CMS, says teachers are going to be a big part of that compliance too.
So they'll be working in conjunction with the drivers to make sure that students are wearing their masks when they board the buses.
It's really a team effort to get the kiddos from point A to B on time and safely. So here's 3 top tips you can pass along to them to make sure everything goes smoothly and their day starts out on the right foot. First of all, we need to mask up. Make sure the kiddos have their mask on when they're getting in line for the bus so they don't have to take time out to get that done before they hop on. Next thing is to be on time. CMS recommends being at the bus stop no less than 10 minutes before drop-off or pickup. And lastly, heads up. Get the kiddos to get off the phone, take their headphones out when they're boarding the bus. That way, they can hear instructions from the bus driver. Another thing parents can do to help, sign up to get behind the wheel. Many school districts in the area are looking for bus drivers right now, including CMS.
We just want folks to know that this is a rewarding job. My drivers do an amazing amount of work to get kids to school and back home safely.
I'm Hawker Vanguard, Fox 46.
One of the most important things during the school day is making sure that kids get the nutrition they need. All meals will be free to all students and regardless of income, but the district encourages families to complete an application because they may qualify for other benefits.
I think this was a way to really take some of that stress off of worrying about whether or not you had funds to pay for school lunches, whether students were going to get meals, if there was going to be any issues with that. And also, too, a lot of our families, even prior to COVID, some of the best meals the kids get come from the schools.
As COVID cases rise across the state, many private universities are requiring students be vaccinated before heading back to class. But as Fox 46's Michael Hyland reports, state leaders say for the UNC system, that may go too far.
As the Delta variant spreads and fuels a rise in COVID-19 cases, some private colleges and universities are mandating students get vaccinated. Shaw University, an HBCU in Raleigh, is among them.
I felt like I didn't need it. I don't get sick.
I was kind of shocked that they started requiring it, but then I went and got it and it wasn't as bad.
The UNC system is encouraging vaccinations, but not mandating them. They say they would need the General Assembly or the state's Commission for Public Health to give them that legal authority. Republican Senate Leader Phil Berger told me no one from the UNC system has contacted him about doing that.
The more people that are vaccinated, the better, but I think that's a decision that people have to make in consultation with their health care provider.
He's been vaccinated, but points out it's still authorized under emergency use.
To mandate that that people have to have that, I think is somewhat problematic.
Mitch Kokai is senior political analyst at the conservative John Locke Foundation. He says he doubts there will be a mandate within the UNC system unless there's some public outcry.
Because there is that mix of responses to it, it probably is not going to rise to the level of going to the General Assembly.
Democratic Governor Roy Cooper is pushing for students to get the vaccine, but when asked if he supports a mandate, a spokesperson said he's still urging people to get the shots.
This is going to happen person by person, call by call, shot by shot.
In Raleigh, Michael Hyland, Fox 46.
They're sworn to serve and protect students at school, but often school resource officers help kids deal with the daily stresses in and out of the classroom. I talked to one SRO who says the most important aspect of his job is building lifelong relationships.
I feel like my main job is to be able to build a rapport with the students.
CMPD's Anthony McGill is Harding High School's school resource officer, and he says it's more than being an officer.
Making sure that connection is strong and making them comfortable enough to come talk to me. So if they do see an issue, they feel comfortable enough to come speak with me, and I can go and address that issue.
What do they come to you about a lot of times?
Things that go on at home.
McGill says many kids worry about food.
Some kids don't eat every day. Some schools like this, we deal with kids who come in who don't necessarily have the same things that they have at other schools. So some of these kids, these kids have been hungry. There's kids who just haven't had the same things here. But this school does a great job of just reaching out to these kids and making sure they have everything they need at home, from books to computers to food to counseling services.
His door is always open to talk about issues such as bullying or social media dust-ups.
Being seen is the most important part, I also believe, because that gives you an opportunity to make sure students feel safe, make sure you're out there, and that your presence is a good deterrent for crime.
Fights at school are always an issue, and Harding is no exception. 5 years ago, 2 students attacked an administrator. Officer McGill says they worked very hard at Harding to build relationships between students and staff and to de-escalate any situation that may arise.
Figure out why it happened, where it started, and how can we ensure this doesn't happen again here at the school.
It's a lot of counseling after.
A lot of counseling after that. It's not only counseling, because some of these things happen over little petty issues that someone misinterpreted. It could be he said, she said, and somewhere in there the story is completely changed around. So now we have an opportunity to actually sit down and talk to these kids.
The big difference between being a beat cop on the streets to working with kids at school, McGill says, is patience.
The youth have different type of issues than adults have to deal with, obviously. And just taking your time with those issues, really walking through it, holding their hand, and making sure everything's all right at home.
And McGill is a perfect fit for the job as a guy who commands respect and disciplined leadership. It's something he learned as a football player at Butler High School and Wingate University.
Some of these guys come talk to me about college, because also I do coach. So these guys will come back and speak to me about, how can I get my grades? How does this translate over there? How does recruiting work?
Officer McGill is in training this week, like many of the SROs, to go over the upcoming changes for the school year. He'll be relaying that to me, the students, soon. And that includes the COVID policy, like wearing masks.
Right now, high school football practices are in full swing, but something is missing from the sidelines for several schools. Coaches and referees are in dire need for teams. Head coaches tell us they need assistance so they're able to give players the attention they need before Friday Night Lights. But it's not just football players who are getting back in the swing of things.
Fox 46's Will Kunkel shows us athletes who haven't competed in their sport in more than 2 years are adjusting to the new COVID changes.
It's been a little bit of a challenge, honestly. Dealing with COVID, coming out of COVID, what does it look like? I think a lot of it nobody knows. We're all guessing a little bit, but we're still trying to follow the rules.
What are they going to do to us? Do we have to wear masks? Do we have to social distance? What's that going to look like this year?
Whatever the government restrictions might be this season is just another something for the coaches to handle.
Training that we go through is to teach you the social distancing, the masking, the hand sanitizer, and it's trained us a lot in like apps for our laptops and phones and stuff like that, and we can actually do check-ins with apps now.
Thankfully, game day provides some normalcy and an escape.
It's my place of turning the entire world off. I've got me, the court, the net, and I've got my team to focus on. And with that, it turns everything off and you forget about it and you just get into this little bubble and it's almost like nothing else exists. That's what volleyball does for me.
I call it my sanctuary. Even as a coach, that Friday night from 7 till 9, nothing else matters really. It's all about trying to win that game, and so you kind of forget about what's going on in the world and live in that moment.
The field is always the happy place for any athlete. It's where they get to play the sport that they love, but the weight room is where they get better at the sport that they love. Unfortunately, last year CMS said you can't use the weight room due to COVID, but this year, hopefully, that restriction is lifted. It's also where teams come together. As important as the weight room is for the team, it's these stands that are as equally as important for the community to come together.
I think it's a very positive thing for these kids, even for us as adults. Think about us when we're watching games on Saturday or Sunday. When our team wins, our university wins, we feel good the rest of the week. I think that's the same positive effect this will have on the community. When we walk out there and play on Myers Park Field, and there's 5,000-6,000 in the stands, the kids are running up and down the hills, you can smell the barbecue, you can smell the hot dogs. That is a positive impact on these kids and a positive impact on our community.
So a lot of changes this year and a lot to look forward to.
Absolutely. For all the kids out there, the parents, the teachers, faculty, staff, everybody, Best of luck this year. Fox 46 has got your back along the way. On behalf of Brian Blakely, myself, Paige Failing, and all of us here at Fox 46, make it a great school year.